So as it turns out, Universal removed the word gay from the trailer.
They probably put lame or something else.
Yeah, lame, yeah. They substituted some other words. So supposedly now the problem is no longer, but the fact is that it went out and it's been heard. So we're sort of waiting now to find out whether we need to issue some kind of statement as to how we don't support any kind of hate. So
what's interesting is that a lot of what is talked about in music tax and a lot of young musicians, they're thinking, how do I get my song out there? How do I get someone to hear it? The other problem with technology at this point is it's almost, you guys have the opposite problem with certain things. How do I control, to some degree, my copyrights, or in what context my music is used? And that becomes a sticky point.
See, like those laws are just being, a custodian as fast as possible to protect the rights of the artist and the creative minds, but it's, I don't know if it's fast enough, because it's...
Yeah, it's a real fluid situation with that emotion, that intellectual property thing, because of the internet, because of, cell phones. And at every art show, there's a, please don't take the girls' pictures after 4 songs rule because they look like shit after 4 songs. But that's useless now because everyone has their cell phone and they can take video after every show at night. It's on YouTube. So there's a point now past which you just have to stop caring. You just have to go, it's out there. And Kelly Curtis, who has been a friend of ours forever and who is the manager of Pearl Jam, as you probably know, told me once when I was wringing my hands about, oh my God, how do we make people stop bootlegging things and pirating things? And he went, well, you may as well just take a deep breath and just forget about it because you can't stop it. Figure out a way to make yourself good enough to be pirated. Make yourself good enough to be bootlegged. And it's all right.
And those guys put out their own bootlegs, too.
Yeah.
That's pretty smart.
A lot of them, like 200 of them.
Yeah.
You guys have never done that, but I would love to hear some heart bootlegs, official ones.
Yeah.
And there's some great recordings of some of the, shows throughout the course of your career that you could put out. There's an idea for you.
Yeah. Yes.
Let's just sort of use that. Good joke.
Carol shaking her head.
I want to go back to. I want to jump forward to Red Velvet Car in just a second, but I want to stick on Barracuda, though. I know you guys want to get far away from it in the speed.
Oh no.
But what's interesting about Barracuda and how a song could be co-opted, when you wrote that song, most people in here that are hard fans are going to know the history of that song. There was a record company weasel guy who came up and responded to an extremely offensive ad that your record company had run that suggested you guys were lesbian lovers and sisters, and you guys left the label as a result, or there were.
That's right.
That was, but it was sometime after that this sleazy guy came up to you and said something offensive to you, and you were inspired enough to write that song.
Yeah, Nancy and I have always been getting less so, but have always been pretty naive about the realities of the people we're going to encounter in the record industry, in the entertainment industry, especially then. And so the reason why that sleazebag, making that suggestion to us made me so enraged was that it hit me all of a sudden that he hadn't heard a thing we'd said. He didn't care anything about the music. He didn't care about any of the songwriting or anything we were trying to do to be artists. All he cared about was the prospect of getting to be a voyeur of 2 chicks going at it. And that pissed me off.
And it still does today.
It still does today. Seething! Anyway.
My point, though, is more to the creative concept as a songwriter. You wrote that song, and here's my question for you. no one knew that's what the song was about. I
Right.
never knew it when I was listening to the album. It wasn't until years later, and I think finally you did an interview with a magazine, but it was quite a while after the song was written, released, analyzed by the public, that anyone knew that there was a context. Years maybe before
Right.
most fans knew. That's a little different than today, where with the instantaneous communication, somebody's going to ask you almost immediately what something's about, and that's going to go out and be disseminated.
Oh,
Yeah.
When we were kids, we were waiting for Cream magazine. By the time one came out and the interview had happened, it was 4 or 5 months after the incident.
So you had to use your imagination,
Yeah.
And it changes as a songwriter.
Yeah.
My question for you, does it change how you write something? Because the information about what the inspiration is no longer is personal. It becomes more public almost immediately.
I don't think
No.
it changes
No, it doesn't change a thing.
anything at all.
Not for
because
us.
Because there's a kind of a deep place, at least in our family, there's a real deep personal place that we write from. And that doesn't have, it pays no heed to what anybody else might think. You know, for instance, when we just made this new album, Red Velvet Card, we were doing strictly out-of-pocket stuff, you know. There's no payday for us to make an album right now, because the industry is basically not there, you know, and it's sort of gone in many ways. Unless you're, I don't know, Gaga or something like that, you know, unless you're pop, unless you're super pop. But we didn't care. You don't need to care what somebody might interpret or think or how it might color, you know, the way they perceive a song, even if it's by what you say later. It's nice when there's a lot of possibility